week. Joining us to discuss all of this is Mike Davis. He's the founder of the Article 3 Project. Thank you for jumping on. I know you've been paying attention to everything that's playing out. Your thoughts on the defense resting and President Trump not testifying in his own defense?
There's no reason that President Trump should have testified in his own defense. There's no upside whatsoever. This is a completely rigged and corrupt political prosecution. This Soros-funded Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg campaigned on getting Trump. They brought in the acting number 3 from the Biden administration, a senior political appointee, Matthew Colangelo, who worked for the Obama Justice Department, the Obama White House, the DNC, to bring this bogus case against Trump. They still have not told President Trump what the legal allegations are. They're in front of this Democrats Manhattan judge, Juan Merchan, who donated to Biden in 2020, donated to another anti-Trump cause. He got privately cautioned by the New York judicial system for making those illegal contributions as a judge. He seems to be the Forrest Gump of all this Trump lawfare in New York. This Judge Merchan sat on the Trump criminal prosecution for the Trump Organization in 2022. He was the one who sentenced Trump's CFO to Rikers Island in 2023. He's now presiding over this Trump case in 2024, and he's going to preside over Steve Bannon's case in 2025. It doesn't sound very random to me that Judge Juan Merchan keeps getting assigned to all these Trump cases, and Judge Juan Merchan's adult daughter, Lauren Merchan, is raising millions of dollars off of this unprecedented criminal prosecution of a former and likely future president, requiring his recusal under New York statute. He's refused. Instead, he's retaliated against President Trump by expanding his illegal, unconstitutional gag order on Trump, where if Trump merely mentions Lauren Merchan's name, or his campaign mentions her name, or even shares a news story mentioning her name, this judge has threatened to throw Trump in jail. They're witnesses. Stories, a porn star who's changed her story several times, who's money peddling her porn site on her penned Twitter feed. And then you have Michael Cohen, this disbarred serial perjurer to embezzling from Trump during this trial. He's a felon. He's a liar. He's a perjurer. He's a disbarred attorney. And Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen are their star witnesses. And then you have this jury pool. It's 87% Biden voter jury pool. And the Judge Merchan and Bragg and Colangelo, the prosecutors, further rigged the process by weeding out people who follow Trump on social media, but not Biden. So the 3 people in Manhattan who follow Trump on Truth are going to get bounced from this jury pool, and it's going to be loaded up with Democrats, Biden supporters. There's no chance Trump will get a favorable verdict. I think they're going to find him guilty. I think this judge is going to convict, and they don't care if this will ultimately get reversed on appeal, which it will. They just want Trump to be called a felon before November 5th, 2024, because this is interference and lawfare, and it's very lucrative for Judge Juan Merchan's fundraising daughter, Lauren Merchan.
Yeah, and it's very obvious, right? When you're watching what he's allowing the prosecutor to kind of he's allowing what their star witnesses are kind of blurring out there. It's compared to what they allowed the defense to ask and for the defense to put out there in front of the jury. It's telling that there is bias here. You know, President Trump is asking for dismissal, and rightfully so with everything that's played out. But interesting enough, Michael, we saw yesterday, we saw Michael Cohen going on the stand, I should mention. He openly admitted that he stole from President Trump. President Trump looked like a victim. Do you think that's going to play in the minds of these jurors? I know their liberal bias probably is probably very strong these days, but President Trump was a victim, did he not?
There's no case here. Even if everything they alleged against President Trump is true, which it's not, but even let's play along, it's not a crime. It's not a crime for a businessman to settle a nuisance claim with a non-disclosure agreement, a confidentiality agreement, this so-called hush money, as they call it. I've been a lawyer for nearly 20 years. I've settled these nuisance claims routinely on behalf of businessmen, business people, businesses, clients. It is routine. Have I committed a felony for doing this? It's just utter nonsense. It's not a crime to take that settlement and books as a legal expense. I don't know what the hell else you would call a settlement of a nuisance claim other than a legal expense. But then under this bogus theory, they're saying that calling a legal expense is a legal expense as a misdemeanor under New York's bookkeeping. It's not, but then they're turning that misdemeanor from 2017 that's time barred and somehow turn it into these 34 felonies under some theory that they still have not explained to Trump after the case is closed.
Yeah, yeah, and they haven't been able to do that either. I wanted to bring up something that Julie Kelly just recently put up on her Substack page. She's talking about Judge Cannon. That she says that Judge Cannon's putting Jack Smith on trial. Ultimately, what's going on right now is we're watching as she's about to go through the process of going out there and asking critical questions, things related to the documents that they wanted sealed and they wanted to bury. What do you expect to come out of all of this? Because right now, obviously, there is no everything's indefinite right now regarding the criminal case on that front. But she's looking to grill Jack Smith and the DOJ for their treatment of President Trump. What are you expecting from this?
Judge Cannon is doing what any good judge would do, is to make sure that the criminal defendant is getting a fair trial, a fair process, due process, equal protection of the law. And the evidence is starting to become pretty clear. It's what I've been saying for 22 months since the unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful raid on the office of former president in Mar-a-Lago for presidential records that President Trump was allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act. This was a political hit on
Mm.
President Trump, ordered by President Biden through his deputy White House counsel, Jonathan Sue, working with Gary Stern at the National Archives, the Archives, and Jay Bratt at the Justice Department. They orchestrated this political hit on President Trump. And the reason they did it is because Trump declassified and kept a personal copy of his Crossfire Hurricane presidential records that are so damning for Obama, Biden, Hillary, the Attorney General, the FBI director at the time, Comey, the CIA director, the DNI. These records show that they cooked up the Russian folks Crossfire Hurricane investigation Trump because Hillary had her illegal home server as Secretary of State hacked by the Russians, and they wanted to be able to say when these records came out of Hillary's illegal foreign corruption, her pay for play foreign corruption schemes with the Clinton Foundation when she was the Secretary of State, they wanted to say that this was part of a Trump campaign, dirty campaign trick with the Russians. And this is the biggest scandal we will see in a long time when these records come out.
And that's what we're really hoping for here. Now, I think it's pretty obvious, Mike. You and I both looked over everything that's been coming out of this exposing, I guess I should say, of all these unredacted documents. I wanted to ask you what kind of penalty specifically can be imposed on the DOJ for kind of trying to hide the collusion between both the National Archives and the Biden administration? Because it was very obvious, like you mentioned, from the very beginning that these two were working together to make it appear like President Trump committed a crime. But what kind of ramifications could come from all of this?
Well, I mean, the case should be dismissed with
Yeah.
prejudice, but this vindictive, selective prosecution and making up evidence, orchestrating a hit based upon the Espionage Act that doesn't apply to the president having his presidential records. They know this. There's no criminal component to the Presidential Records Act. But frankly, what needs to happen is on January 25, Trump's Justice Department, his acting attorney general, must open a criminal probe on this criminal conspiracy against President Trump. His top aides like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, his attorneys like Jeff Clark and John Eastman, his supporters on January 6th. President Biden has politicized and weaponized his Justice Department and intel agencies. So has President Obama. They have done this going back to 2016 with Crossfire Hurricane. They continued it in 2020 with Hunter Biden's laptop. The CIA working with the 51 former intel officials up the Biden family corruption, just like they covered up the Clinton family corruption, run this lawfare against President Trump through Jack Smith and Jay Bratt and these various Democrat district attorneys and AGs, Tish James, Fannie Willis, Alvin Bragg, Matthew Colangelo. There are so many people inside of government and outside of government, frankly, who are colluding to violate President Trump's civil rights. That's a very serious federal civil rights violation. It's a felony, up to 10 years in prison, 18 USC Section 241. There are many other potential crimes, racketeering. The Democrats like that crime. And when President Trump is in office, his Justice Department must ensure there are severe legal, financial, and political consequences to this republic ending lawfare and election interference led by Joe Biden.
Yeah, well, we need to make sure of this because honestly, this needs to end. This should not happen to any candidate moving forward, regardless of their party affiliation. We are watching our democracy completely crumble, and it's because Democrats don't like the fact that voters in this country strongly support a president that isn't aligned to the deep state. And so they're going after him full speed. Mike Davis, thank you for jumping on with us today. We appreciate your insight.